Tim Anderson from Clyde, Ohio, originally, number 54, uh, Ohio State, 99 through '03.
Okay. Now, when you were, I've been to Clyde. Like I said, I was former athletic director. Yeah, I know. It's not many people have. Yeah. Well, no. Well, I got lost getting there. Yeah. So, how do you get from Clyde to the big school and then the NFL? Is there anyone that set the path for you there?
No, actually, that was one of the things in Clyde. We had a couple of athletes that went to like MAC schools before me. We had a guy that went to Ball State on a scholarship, an offensive lineman. We had a guy go, a defensive back, that went to Bowling Green, actually played for Urban Meyer at Bowling Green. But that was about the extent of it. We didn't have anybody go to like a big time program or anything. And obviously, that was a goal of mine. And honestly, things just kind of fell into place, and it was the perfect thing. It just worked out. I went to a couple of contact football camps that they hold in the summertime. I went to one in Illinois and one in Wisconsin,
Okay.
and I had some pretty good success there with kids. I didn't, at that time, obviously, internet isn't what it is today. You didn't know about players like you do today. And I went against some of their defensive linemen in drills and was kind of beat them up. And that's kind of where everything kind of got started for me. Um, and then we went into the football season my junior year. We played a couple of teams early that had some guys that were getting recruited, and I had success against them. So that opened up the gates a little bit more. And then to be quite honest, as far as like the big time programs like the Ohio States and Michigans and things of that nature, um, a lot of that started actually after wrestling my junior year. I went undefeated my junior year in wrestling. I was a heavyweight, won a state title, and honestly, probably within a couple of weeks of winning that state title in early March, I would say by the end of March, I had a lot of scholarship offers from some big time programs. And I really think that it was just kind of that combination of building up and showing that success over that period of time. I think the other thing, and back then, recruiting was a lot different than
Right.
it is today. I mean, back then, I don't even think you could get a scholarship offer till like the middle of your junior year or something
Right.
like that. So I know it's completely different today. So it all kind of worked out timing wise. And obviously, being an Ohio kid, I grew up as an Ohio State fan, watching them on Saturdays. And, it was kind of a no brainer. Once I knew they wanted me, I knew I wanted to be there. So it just worked out.
Now, is it? I mean, again, I've been to Clyde, so I understand it. Is it like there's a recruiter in town? It's like everyone knows it, so that's kind of the wow. Here's somebody coming to recruit me. And everyone else knows that as well. That's got to be pretty special.
It was pretty cool, like, getting pulled out of class in the middle of the day because some coach from, Michigan State or Ohio State or somebody like that was in the school and wanted to talk with you. But it did become a pretty big deal, just because, like I said, we had athletes go to college before, but no one to that level. We hadn't had anybody go into big time programs. And things like that. So it was special. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was a new experience, I think, for even like our athletic director,
Oh, yeah.
in learning and understanding about the NCAA clearinghouse,
Right.
grade wise, what you need and stuff like that. So there was a lot of that kind of stuff that was learning curves for us too.
Now, at that point, did you consider yourself a better wrestler or a better football player?
Uh, to be honest with you, I think I was a better wrestler. Um, I football, like, to be honest, I never had a huge amount of confidence when I played football, believe it or not. Um, but and maybe it was because like my high school teams weren't all that successful.
Right.
We were a 500, maybe 5-5, 6-4, type teams. And I thought, if I was really that good of a player, I would think my team would be better, because you always hear these stories, these guys that are going to those types of programs that are coming from championship caliber
Right.
teams, and we're barely winning 5 games a year. So, I thought, well, if I was a better player, we would be a better team. And so and obviously in wrestling, I had a lot of success. And the other thing with wrestling was the success in wrestling came really quick.
Right.
I didn't start wrestling until I was in 8th grade. And my junior year, 4 seasons later, I won a state title. So my wrestling background was pretty limited. So I kind of felt like that was the route. And I was getting recruited by a lot of schools to be a wrestler as well.
Did you have that opportunity to go to Ohio State as both, or did they say that's not happening?
Well, no. So oddly enough, funny story about what happened there. So there was another kid from Ohio. His name was Tommy Rollins. He was a 2-time national champion. We're the same age. So we went to Ohio State at the same time. So there was no recruitment for me to wrestle there because they had him.
Yeah, Tommy's right.
Which was totally understandable. But they did because they redshirted him his freshman year. And my freshman year at Ohio State in '99, we were not a very good team. We ended up going 6-6. We didn't play in a bowl game. So our season was done right after the Michigan game. And they contacted me because they didn't have a heavyweight because they had redshirted Tommy. So they asked me to come out for a year, just freshman year. That's it. We just need a body. We need somebody that, can win some matches here and there. There really wasn't any huge expectations or anything. And obviously I really wanted to, but the football staff was not real keen on that idea.
I can understand that. Yeah, the cross promotion. We were going to talk to John Lumpkin a couple of days ago. I was like, I want to see how that worked because I think they begged him to come out and play more than he decided he wanted to come out and play. So,
yeah.
Okay, so you've gone from Clyde, and I've asked this question to a few people. Moving in day. Football players get in before the regular students get in. What's that experience going from Clyde to stepping on the campus and looking around and saying, what's going on here?
It was a culture shock. And for the people that don't know, Clyde is a very small town. We've got probably in the neighborhood of maybe 5,000, maybe 5,500 residents, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. My graduating class from high school was maybe 150. We might have only had, 600 kids or so in the high school between the 4 grades. So going from that to Columbus, Ohio, and Ohio State campus, where literally I would walk into a class my freshman year, and there were more kids in that class than there were in my entire senior class the year before. So it was definitely a culture shock, being around the facilities, being around, some of those older veteran guys that, I'd spent the last several years watching on TV, and now all of a sudden I'm sharing a locker room with them. There are a few lockers down. So there was definitely some intimidation and some growing pains there, trying to adapt to living in a city and navigating a city and stuff like that, compared to a small farm town in the middle of nowhere.
I remember, what was the class? UVC. That was at a University Hall or one of those places where you walk in and went, there are more people here than I've ever met in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say it was I think it was one of the freshman math classes that you had to take. I walked in and there was like 500 or 600 kids. I mean, it was a huge lecture hall, 500-600 kids. And I'm like, literally, that's like the size of my high school.
Right. Yeah.
And it was one class, so it was definitely different. And I definitely struggled, those first few months. I think getting, nobody wants to go to college and get redshirted.
Right.
And, but I ended up getting redshirted my freshman year. And I honestly think it was probably the best thing for me. Because I think if I would have been trying to play football and adjust to school, it would have been difficult. And the other thing that's different today than it was back then we were on quarters. Right. We were on the quarter system. So we didn't actually start class until, maybe it was like mid-September.
Right.
Or something like. So we'd be 3-4 weeks into the football season before school started. Right. So, trying to balance the adjustment to school in the middle of a football season where you're trying to play and focus on that, you coming from a small town, I think getting that redshirt was probably really good because it kind of allowed me to focus more on adjusting to school and all that kind of stuff as opposed to focusing on the football side of it as much.
And I think what we see from afar is that, well, I went to school, I went to class, I don't see what the big deal is, and the other thing of coming from, where did you come from to make that adjustment? We see you on TV, so we figure, you're ready for the big time. You're ready for all this glory and all these accolades, and you haven't had that before. That's got to be a huge adjustment.
It was. I mean, Ohio Stadium holds over 100,000 people. Mind you, I just told you my hometown is like 5,000 people.
5,000, right?
So, I mean, you walk into that place, it's like, man, my hometown, I could fit them in here like 10, 15 times.
Right.
It's crazy. So it's definitely different. Obviously, I never played in front of huge crowds in high school or anything like that. So it was definitely different. It was definitely an adjustment. I remember running out on the field for the first time. I think all Buckeyes do. And I honestly kept telling myself, I said, just don't trip. Just don't trip. Keep your head down. You can look up once you're out on the sideline. Then you can look around. Because I didn't want to be that guy that, catch the edge of the turf or something like that and bite it. So it was definitely an adjustment, a culture shock, just to the way things were down there and the way football players were seen and treated. It was just stuff that I'd never experienced, and it was an adjustment for sure.
So you transitioned from the redshirt year and being an underclassman, and then you're captain of the team. Mm-hmm. And again, you said you went from 6-6 to a national championship team. What was that adjustment? How did you guys get from that spot to where you were a national contender and you're the captain of the team? How does that feel to you?
It was amazing. It was definitely a great journey going through those first couple of years where we really struggled. And I think, experiencing those first couple of years where we struggled kind of set the tone for us younger guys, because, that's not the program or the legacy of Ohio State University.
Right.
Going 6-6 or 7-5 or whatever like that. That's not Ohio State football. I mean, you win every game or maybe lose a game a year, if that. And that just wasn't the expectation. And I think, when Coach Tressel came in, he did a phenomenal job of kind of changing the mentality of putting the onus on us. And I think one of the putting my entire career together from high school, college, and the NFL, I think that couple of year stretch there where things really started getting going for us and we won the national championship and stuff, I think a lot of it, Coach Tressel and his staff did a good job of putting the onus on us. And we really did a good job of holding each other accountable. I know I had, battles with our offensive line, and if they weren't getting it done in practice as a defensive line, we let them know, like, this isn't acceptable. Like, this, you need to be better. And they would do the same thing to us. And it was never a negative thing in a sense, but it was more, you're better than this, pick it up type of thing. And we really held each other accountable from that aspect. And we were a close-knit group. We always hung out. We were friends and all that and all that stuff I think kind of plays in. And, where we lacked in talent, I got some texts this week because they, I don't know what day it was, Monday or Tuesday, I guess they aired the national championship game. And, I caught a little bit of it, and I just, I'm looking at the field and I'm seeing all these stars from Miami. And yeah, we had some really good players, obviously, on our team, but nothing like what they had.
Right.
But we were a team and we played as a team. And I think that was really the difference. And I think it was all that training, all that time we spent together and holding each other accountable versus the coaches holding us accountable. Whereas I kind of felt like those first couple years when I was there as a young player, I think it was more the coach's directive versus the players, whereas
right.
I feel like kind of shifted a little bit under Coach Tressel. And it was more, the onus is on you guys to do the work and hold each other accountable, because when you go out into the field, we can make all the calls we want. I mean, and I think sometimes people forget that with coaches. They can make the perfect call, but if the guys on the field don't execute that call,
doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter. So, and I think that Coach Tressel and his staff did a really good job of kind of putting that stuff on us.
Well, you mentioned something that I think is kind of important. Well, the whole thing is important, but something that I don't think people think about. When you had a daily battle, who was across from you every day?
Alex Stepanovich. My first couple years was LaCharles Bentley, who was a complete stud.
Right.
And then Alex Stepanovich, Nick Mangold, those were the two centers primarily. And I primarily played nose for the most part.
Right.
But Bryce Bishop, Shane Olivier, all those guys, Adrian Clark. And we did a lot of one-on-one battles. So it was, ones versus ones. I mean, even middle of the season to late season. I mean, if it was early in the week, it wasn't we're going against the scout team all week. It was Coach Tress brought us together, and it was the one offense versus the one defense, and we were competing. And again, I think that made us better. Going into games, and I remember especially my early when I had to practice against LaCharles all the time. And I mean, that guy was one of the best centers probably that's ever played at Ohio State.
Right.
And, going against him all week in practice and then going into a game, the game was almost easier than practice every day. And I think, that is really key to the success of a team when your practices are more difficult than games because you're pushing yourself harder and you have the talent in your own team. Whereas we did with our O&D lines back then, it makes us a better team.
And that's the thing that I don't think when we'll get to that later when we go to where you are now, that some guys don't understand how important practice is and how important it is to push yourself in practice because that's where you learn. And the game is where you shine and what you learn. So we'll get to that later. Okay, so I asked about moving day. Then the next question, of course, is always senior tackle.
Yeah.
And I usually get to that point, and I don't ever have to say anything else because people run with that. So what the senior tackle, that whole, where are we now?
Yeah, it's crazy. And everybody says this about life. This is, in Ohio State football is no different. And you'll get to that point, and it's sad. I kind of felt sad and kind of down on that day because it was kind of that realization, like, this is over. Like, my college days are pretty much done at this point. And you spend so much time in the weight room and on the practice field and stuff, and a lot of the days seem like they take forever. And it's like, my gosh, I'm going to be here the rest of my life. And literally just like that, you're doing those end of the year events where we're marching with the band after practice. We do the senior tackle when you're getting ready for that last game. It's like, 4 or 5 years is gone now. I mean, just like that, it's vanished, and it ends up being one of the quickest periods of your life. I know that senior tackle is kind of an exciting thing for some people. For me, it was sad because it was just kind of that realization that, like, this is over. My college days are over. My teammates who I've played together with for the last 4 years, we're all going to split up and go different places, whether it was going to the next level in the NFL or just on with our lives doing other things. And we were going to split up and go all over the country and, basically be phone calls and text messages once in a while.
And it is pretty much final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you get through all of that, and then here comes the NFL. Is this kind of the same thing of coming from Clyde to going to Ohio State?
Amplified, yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely amplified. Again, it's like college. You spend your whole life watching it, and I never thought I would ever be, as much as I always wanted to be a professional football player, and I said that was my dream and all that. I think even for me, there was this little bit in the back of my head that was like, very few people get to actually do that or experience that. And so reality is that's probably not going to be my future. And obviously with the success my junior and senior year of college, I knew that it was probably going to happen, or at least I was going to have an opportunity. Obviously I didn't know where my career was going to go or anything like that. But you go through that anticipation of the combine, and you get poked and you get prodded and you get marched around and you're asked a million different questions all the way up through draft day, and you're sitting there and, again, another period where a minute feels like it takes an hour because you're waiting for your name. Now, for me, I knew that I wasn't going to be a first rounder or anything like that. I thought, towards the end of the second round, I could start to hear my name. So probably about mid-second round is when things really started kind of slowing down. I'm like, oh God, this is taking forever. But back then the draft was 2 days. So you had the first 3 rounds on Friday and then the other 4 rounds on Saturday. And so just kind of sitting and waiting in anticipation of what was going on. And, you finally, my phone rings and it was the Buffalo Bills, and they said they were going to draft me. And I, went through the roof because at this point, I was a 3rd-round draft pick. So I knew my odds of making the team my rookie year were going to be pretty good. So it was exciting. It was definitely different. It was scary. Like now all of a sudden, just like that, you're off to a new city.
Shuffle off Buffalo, right?
Yeah. Now, luckily for me, I got drafted by Buffalo, and Buffalo is very much like an Ohio town. It's like Columbus. It's like Cleveland. It's not huge. It's big, but it's not huge. It's not like getting drafted by, San Diego or New York or, something like that, Miami. So it worked out really well that I ended up in Buffalo, I think. But yeah, it was, the same thing, and you get up there, and I remember my first day, I was sitting in my locker and Drew Bledsoe walked in.
Right.
And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, it's like, that's Drew Bledsoe. Oh man, I'm in the same locker room as Drew Bledsoe. And it was like, and then all the, Takeo Spikes and London Fletcher and these other guys are, I'm like, oh my God, like, like I'm on their team now. This was crazy. And it was almost a little bit of being starstruck. They're like, oh my gosh. So it was definitely interesting. And obviously all these guys are talented, and, it's the top of, cream of the crop, top players in the country. So, the constant worry of, oh gosh, I hope I don't screw up. I hope I don't forget what I'm supposed to do on this call or whatever. So it was very similar to college, but because you have half the guys on your team in the NFL than you do in college, in college, my freshman year, I pretty much stood around most of the time, and I just kind of watched and learned. Well, NFL is a lot different.
Yeah, right.
Especially, I went to Buffalo where they had Sam Adams and Pat Williams were the 2 starters, 2 guys that were pretty much in the Pro Bowl every year, or at least contenders for the Pro Bowl every year. And those were veterans that had been playing for, at that point, 8, 9, 10 years.
Right.
They aren't taking practice reps.
Right.
These are Pro Bowl caliber players that are 9-year vets. And it's, Brooke, you're in there. And it was, so you're in there going all the time and, learning on the fly and things of that nature. But it was definitely an interesting transition. It was very similar to the college experience, though.
So you're saying at this point, I am an NFL player. I belong.
Oh no, I didn't say that. No. I was attempting to make that work. But I didn't feel like I belonged. And I don't know if I ever really did, to be honest. And there were even times in college late in my career where I kind of was like, do I really belong at Ohio State? Am I really at this level? And I think that was maybe in my mind what kind of kept me driven to continue to work the way I did and do was I'm not good enough. This is beyond me. So I got to work to kind of try to achieve that. It wasn't till, I kind of got through that first weekend of cuts when they did the cuts back then. And I knew I was on the team that I kind of was like, okay, I've made a 53-man roster. This is pretty cool. And then it was, kind of just grew from there. And pretty quickly, it went to it's football. I'm at this level and I could compete with some of these guys, and obviously playing some of the guys that I did, when I first went to Buffalo, Kevin Mawai was the center for the Jets, who obviously is in the Pro Bowl or Hall of Fame now. So getting to play against him a couple of times a year, going against Tom Brady twice a year, things like that, you quickly forget about who they are. And, the fact that I had some success against guys that were really good Pro Bowl or Pro Bowl caliber players, starts to build confidence. And you do start to think like, okay, I do belong in this league and I do deserve an opportunity to play and take an opportunity to do things.
Okay. Now at this point, we're thinking, I belong in the league, but are you still able to, because this is the question that I've been asked a lot. You're now playing at the next level. Are you following Ohio State? Can you follow Ohio State? Are you an Ohio State fan? You're like, that was my past, or do I still embrace that?
Oh no, I still followed it. I followed Ohio State pretty closely, and I have ever since I left. I watch their games every week if I can't watch them live. Now I have older kids; they are involved in stuff, so sometimes I got to tee with the game and watch it later. But no, I always followed the Buckeyes and what was going on. Kept in contact with my coaches, even some of the guys that for the first couple of years I was out that I knew that were still there. Kept in contact with those guys, and just became one of those, like, I want to follow the people that I know type of things. But yeah, I still followed them pretty closely and watched their stuff. I still do. My wife, my wife gets mad at me during games, especially when they're not playing real well, because I take it a little personally.
It's part of you, right?
Yeah, now it's just like, she's like, it's a game, calm down. I'm like, no, it's not a game. Like, so, but yeah, I still take it personally and I still follow it very closely.
Well, the reason why I asked that question is because I graduated, I left school, and now I'm supposed to go on with my life, right? That's what you do. Mm-hmm. And Saturdays come around, it's like, my life stops.
Yep.
Well, what are you doing? The game's on.
Yep.
But you're not in school there anymore. Like, the game's on. It doesn't matter. You mean they're not showing the game? We better go find some place where they're showing the game. Yes. That kind of thing. So, yeah. So, okay. So, now the NFL career is winding down. What are you thinking? Is it still in your mind, I am now a professional athlete, or now I have to figure out what I have to do?
Well, for me personally, the writing was on the wall. I had some, to be completely honest, I had some stuff going on in my personal life and stuff where my mind just wasn't right, and I was battling some different things, and I could see that my play was falling off. My attention to detail wasn't the way it used to be, and the things that made me successful to compete at that level, all of a sudden I wasn't doing. And I could see the writing was on the wall. I knew it was only going to be a short period of time, probably before I was done. And so I kind of had a little bit of time to prepare for it, but honestly, no, when it was all said and done, and, I knew I wasn't going to come back, and, I had a chance with the Dallas Cowboys right at the end there, and then I got injured, and that pretty much sealed the deal for me. But I struggled. It was difficult to kind of figure out what do you do now? Because my entire life was dedicated to trying to reach this goal and play at this level, and all of a sudden it's gone, and where I think sometimes people that have never played obviously at a professional level maybe don't quite understand. This is not like, oh, I just got fired or laid off from my job, I can go someplace else to another company and do the same thing.
Right.
This is, I'm done playing football. I'm never going to do this again. This is over. And I got to completely transition into a completely different career. I only played 4 years, and I never signed a big contract. So it wasn't like, I had $10 million sitting in the bank and I could just sit back with my feet up and do nothing. So I knew I needed to do something. I had just gotten married. We were pregnant. We were getting ready to have our first kid. And I had a lot of struggles with what to do with my life. And I tried a kind of variety of different things. I was never the best student in school. I mean, I passed my classes and stuff like that, but I was never the best student. And I did not want to go back to school. The idea of going back to college scared the living daylights out of me. And my wife kind of kept encouraging me to do it because, everything kind of fell back to wanting to be a teacher. But, to be a teacher, I was going to have to go back to school. I was going to have to get my teaching license and do all these things. I mean, I was looking at like 2.5 years worth of school to become a teacher. And I'm like, I'm not doing all that. Like, that's too much. And I was like, not to mention, I don't think I would do that well anyway. So I kind of pushed that to the side. I became a real estate agent for a little while. I did some other things, business related, some business jobs here and there, sales rep and stuff like that. But just nothing ever set right with me. I just never was happy doing what I was doing. And finally one day my wife just kind of kicked me in the butt and said, you're going back to school and you're going to do this and you're going to do it a different way and you're going to be able to handle it. My wife was very smart. She graduated with a really high GPA and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, she kind of sat me down and said, this is how we're going to do it. And kind of gave me a game plan of how to study and, stuff that I kind of did half-heartedly my first time around. And it was amazing. My grades, I don't think I ever got below a B+ on anything after that, and went through the couple of years of school, got the classes that I needed, got my teaching license and all that, and ended up becoming a teacher and coaching wrestling.
So I had a conversation with Rob Kelly a few years ago about that kind of same thing. It's like, okay, I'm not playing anymore. And I went back to school. He went back to Ohio State. And he's like, this is good, but it's different.
Yeah.
It's not like the first time through. This is completely different. And part of it, I think, was just what you said. Now there's a purpose for the school part. Not to say that you go to school and there's not a purpose for it, but you're also football player. You're also potential NFL player. So the school part is something you have to do.
Yeah.
But what he was talking about the next time was, this is something I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that definitely made it easier, that transition. I had good structure, and I think at that point when I went back to school, I had run away from the idea of going back to school for several years at that point. That I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be around the kids, because what happened was I got asked to be a wrestling coach at Massillon Perry, where I'm at now. And I wasn't a teacher. I was doing real estate at the time, so I was just coaching. And I developed relationships with the kids. We had a great time. And then I got a really good job offer in Columbus. And so my wife and I moved down there for that. And it didn't allow me to coach. And I just felt empty. And that's when she kind of kicked my butt about going back to school. And it just so happened that when I did, there was a job opening at Perry. The wrestling coach wanted me to come back to work with the big guys. So it all kind of fell into place, perfect timing. But to be honest, I love what I do. I love being around the kids. I've been teaching for 6 years now, I think, maybe 7 years now. And I absolutely love it. It was the first time probably since early in my NFL career that I felt like I loved what I was doing.
Right.
I woke up and I enjoyed going to work. Whereas in my other careers, I didn't. It was like, oh, man, I got to go to work.
You got to go make some money, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to school now, obviously, because of the coronavirus and all that. And I miss it. Like, I miss waking up and getting to go to school and interact with the kids and do the things that I always did with them. And trying to do it through the computer is just not the same. And I absolutely love it. Like, I've never had a doubt that this is what I should have done from the get-go. But it was obviously a difficult few years in that transition, trying to figure that out.
Well, we talked about before we started that being in the building and being around the kids and being on the court or on the mat or whatever, it's not like you're reliving what you did before as that being in that age, but it's almost as if it's like, now I can feel what they feel. Now I can get them to feel what I felt and get them to improve, get them to enjoy it. And this is something they can do, or at least have a memory for their lives. And I think people tend to forget that what teachers bring to the table isn't just education. It's more than that. So when you're dealing with the wrestlers, do they know your background? Or are they just like, that's Coach Tim, and he's, knows.
The rest of the kids on our wrestling team, they know my background. It's not really a secret. My background has gotten around the school. There are still kids that maybe don't realize that I played and what I did. But even that, it's kind of like once one kid figures it out, like a bunch of other kids will figure it out pretty quickly, or the rumors will start like, oh, did you really play football at Ohio State? Did you play in the NFL? And it's like, these are kids I've had in class, and we're halfway through the year. And I'm like, yeah, it was in my past. Like, how could you not tell us that? And, and all this kind of stuff. So I think it does give a little bit of a different perspective when I tell the kids, like, I teach a history class. So, I tell them, I'm like, we use it all the time. I was like, when I play football, I studied the history of what the other teams did all the time. That's how I could kind of predict what they're going to do in the future. Right. What do they call in certain situations and stuff? And I said, you do it in everything, regardless of what your job is. I mean, yes, they don't need to know when the Declaration of Independence is signed or what the Articles of Confederation were and things in their lives, but they do have to understand that you have to look at the past to kind of adjust and move forward in the future. So I definitely think it gives me some clout, and it helps me with some of the kids. Some of the kids don't care. They're obviously not sports people.
Right.
But I got to tell you, it's kind of weird, because we're obviously, like a lot of schools, we're one-to-one where every kid has their own laptop. And it is kind of weird if I'm walking around the room and a kid's got his laptop open and there's an action shot of me playing football as his background or whatever. It's kind of weird. And I've actually had a couple of kids ask me for an autograph, a couple, stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's, I think it's now to the point where I've been in the building long enough that it's, for the most part, it's not a big deal. Most people, like, they'll talk to me about it or ask me questions about it. Certainly I'm the go-to for Ohio State questions on why this is happening or what they're doing. But, I think for the most part, it's at the point now where I think most people, it's not really that big of a deal. And not to mention, none of the kids that are in high school right now anyway were even born yet when I finished up college. So, I mean, they were babies when I was playing college, and, they're 17, 16, 18 years old, whatever. So to them, it's like, yeah, you played, but that was like forever ago. So
you played during the Civil War, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But it is funny though. I've definitely been asked about, being in Buffalo and would you ever play against Tom Brady? And yeah, I played against Tom Brady. That's always the one that's like, oh my gosh, that's, but no, so it's good. It's fun, and it gives me the ability, athletically, obviously, with the wrestling, to be able to wrestle with my guys, with my upper weight still. It helps keep me in shape and stuff like that.
Okay, one last question now. What did that whole experience, the whole Ohio State experience, how has that affected who you are right now?
I don't know if maybe affect is the wrong word. I don't feel like it's really affected me a whole lot, because I've never been a guy that has talked about what I did or where I played or the fact that I even play football. I mean, so many times I meet people and I'm a bigger guy. I'm still, 6'4", 280 pounds. They're like, gosh, you're a big dude. Did you play college football? I'm like, oh yeah, I played at some small school in Ohio. And I kind of leave it at that and kind of move on. And, because I'm not one that boasts about what I do. I don't wear my national championship rings. I don't, I've got some stuff in my office, things for me personally. So it helped me grow up. It gave me a lot of life experiences. It put me in contact with some great people. I still talk to some of my coaches. I still talk to Coach Tressel. I still talk to Coach Haycock and Mark Antonio and some of those guys that I had in college. They obviously provided me with great experience. And, I love the fact that, I was a national champion and, that type of stuff. And it does provide, I'm not going to lie, it does provide opportunities, being an Ohio State football player. That did that weigh in the decision to hire me as a teacher at Perry? Maybe it did. I mean, no one ever came out and said that, but I know in other jobs that I had, that was a factor. The fact that I was not just a football player, but I was a football player at Ohio State, and I was a football player on the national championship team at Ohio State. So it has impacted my life in those types of ways.
Right.
But I've also tried pretty hard. I'm not, I have social media accounts. I have a Twitter account and stuff like that, but I don't tweet a whole lot. I'm not like some guys that are like, look at me, or posting old pictures of themselves playing all the time. That's just not my style. Like, I'm the guy that, tries to almost avoid those conversations. And it's funny. I have met people and I've had friends, and we've been friends for months, and they'll find out and they're like, how did you never tell me that before? And it's, to me, it was a job. I mean, in college, when I played football, that was my job. It was just like any other student who has to work at a Wendy's or a whatever to go to school and pay for school. I mean, I was going to work to pay for school. My work just happened to be playing football.
Right.
And when I got drafted and I went to Buffalo and Atlanta and I was playing football, that was a job. I mean, I told people, people were like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? Like, I'm going to work. Like, that's my job. That's what I do for a living. And so it doesn't make me any different. It doesn't make me any better than anybody else, just because, I had, part of being a football player is size. And if you're not 6'4" and 300 pounds, then, odds are you're not going to play professional football. Right. That doesn't mean, that doesn't make me anything special compared to anybody else that, a doctor or a nurse or even a teacher. And, I think being a teacher is a hell of a lot harder than being a football player. So it's, I don't think it's really affected my life, maybe in the way that you kind of anticipated the question.
No, that's where most people have gone. It's like, okay, what it has done is it's given me perspective.
Yeah.
And I don't think when I first started asking that question, that's not what I expected to get. But what I've been getting from that is it's allowed me to understand what being part of a team is, and understand how to be humble and how to enjoy life and how to get perspective on where you're at. Going back to school, when I first started talking to people like, well, you went back to school to teach? Well, I went back to give back. I went back to do the job. And that's what I think you got from being not just an athlete, but a student athlete, being at the Ohio State University. I believe, it may be the same at Arizona State. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that going through that process, when you get out, you're like, now I can go do something. So,
yeah.
Well, Tim, I appreciate you being on. We'll double back here and ask a few questions later, hopefully. But hopefully you get a chance to get back in the building before the school year's out.
Me too. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the time.
Appreciate your help. Thank you.